Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Ordinary Council meeting of Claremont, Tuesday the 31st of March 2026. In accordance with Regulation 14L of the Local Government Administration Regulations 1996, this meeting is being audio recorded and the recording will be published on the town's website within 14 days. Members of the public are cautioned against taking any action as a result of a council decision tonight until such time as the minutes of the meeting are published or have been advised in writing by the council's administration with regard to any particular decision. Elected members are asked to ensure the use of their microphone because of this for the purposes of the audio recording. Item 1, we declare the meeting open at 7 o'clock. The town of Claremont acknowledges the Whadjuk Noongar people as the traditional custodians of this land. We recognise and respect their continuing culture and the contribution they make to the life of this town. Now, a special announcement on behalf of the town of Claremont, a message from Tim Clinch, which I'm going to share, dated the 24th of March this year. Dear staff, it's with great sadness I share the news of the passing of your long-term colleague and friend, Debbie Isaac. Debbie has been a dedicated member of our library since 2007 and has been instrumental in the library and the town's success. Debbie is described by her colleague as the kindest person and a true friend to all. Our thoughts are with Debbie's family and loved ones. Item 2, record of attendance, apologies, leave of absence. Leave of absence, nil, apologies, nil. And we have Councillor Sarah Franklin attending via electronic attendance. Item 3, disclosure of interest. I'd like to disclose your financial interest in regarding item 13.1.4, Bayview Community Centre lease, as I own a company which is a supplier to Bayview Coffee Limited, trading in standing room, and I'll be leaving the room for this item. Councillor Brown, you have disclosures of interest.
Thank you. I declare I have a financial interest in item 13.2.2, right-of-way strategy, as my property is part of a laneway marked for upgrades, which if approved could increase the value of my property. I declare I will leave the room for this matter. I also disclose I have a financial interest in item 13.2.4, 14 Chester Road, as I'm employed by a professional services firm which has an ongoing working relationship with the architectural firm used for this development. Again, I will leave the room for this matter. I also disclose I have an impartiality interest in item 13.2.5, the Performing Arts Centre, as this was my previous employer was this architectural firm used for this development. I declare that I will consider this matter on its merits and vote accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 4, response to previous questions taken on notice, nil. Item 5, public question time. We've got Nick Cook of Claremont. Nick.
Thank you, Peter. In reference to the report in item 13.3.1, can Council please explain under what circumstances Council would consider implementing tree-free zones and what would be the rationale for doing so?
Thank you, CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. It can be confirmed that the town has adopted an approach which provides for the provision of trees throughout the town wherever it is appropriate to plant a tree. There are no circumstances where blanket street tree-free zones would be a consideration. Circumstances where trees would not be planted are where safety in terms of site distance is a concern or where planting of a tree is precluded by physical barriers or by the presence of utility services.
Thank you. Item 6, public statement time. Mr. Cook of Claremont.
Thank you. I wish to speak in favour of item 13.3.1, option 3, presented by the administration. The polyphagous shot-hole borer is a terrible pest that could have a devastating impact on tree canopy cover of Claremont and Perth if not untreated as urgently as possible. In fact, it has already had quite a devastating effect. FOC highly supports administration's recommendation number 3 to spend $240,000 per annum to monitor, treat and report on this infestation. FOC strongly encourages Council to approve this recommendation to ensure that the town's tree canopy is maintained, enhanced and expanded for everyone's benefit, including our amenity, health and well-being, and to reduce the impacts from the urban heat island effects, like shade along pathways, making it safer to walk and saving on air conditioning costs. FOC has one major concern with the recommendation about the tree-free zones, and thank you for explaining that. Instead, we recommend that selecting the correct tree for the correct place is a better approach. It is globally accepted that tree canopy cover for every community should be a minimum of 30%, and Claremont is at approximately 22%, which is still well below that threshold. FOC thanks the admin for this report and their work to date handling this crisis. If I can just expand with your permission, Mayor. In my role as coordinator of Friends of Lake Claremont, at the time that was when shot-hole borer landed, and also in my role with WA Tree Canopy Advocates, I've had a fortunate position to be right at the front of this shot-hole borer issue and have attended major briefings with DPIRD, Town of Claremont, Arb West, which is the peak arborist body. There is a lot of good work being done in this airspace. I think we all understand that the state government has completely dropped the ball on this issue, and unfortunately it now falls to council to do something about it. We just cannot ignore this problem. It has to be addressed. It's a serious problem. It's one of the biggest biosecurity threats that this country has faced, and the state government has mishandled the problem, and it now falls to local government to deal with it. I just can't stress enough how important this issue is for Claremont and for Perth and for the rest of Australia. The City of Perth has done a lot of great work in this airspace. I understand that there might be a bit of pushback from council tonight on this issue, and I would urge you, if there is pushback, to go back to administration to seek more information rather than just reject what's being offered. It's extraordinarily important that we deal with this issue, so I encourage you to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Now calling Donna Clannett of Claremont, please.
Sorry, Donna Clannet's my name. I'm the owner of 4 Agate Road, Claremont. Concerns item 13.2.4, lots 35 and 36 Chester Road. My property adjoins the eastern boundary of 14 Chester Road. Now, whilst I commend the owners of this property for restoring a heritage-listed beautiful house, I do have concerns, and it's important that adjoining neighbours' amenities are not affected by developments. I note the letter of response and the documents supplied to Council from Urbanista Town Planning regarding the development. This development proposal includes demolition of an existing pool house. The wall of this abuts an existing retaining wall between our property and 14 Chester Road, followed by construction of a new pavilion, the height of which exceeds current allowable limits. They have redesigned the roof structure to make it less imposing, but we now have a chimney on top of this pool house. The rooms of our house that would adjoin the proposed pavilion are an ensuite bathroom and a walk-in robe next to the main bedroom. However, we would like to point out that there's an inaccuracy in the document from Urbanistic Town Planners, page 4, section 3.1, where it is stated that the chimney is positioned away from the neighbour's major outdoor living area, south of the adjoining property. This is incorrect. Our main outdoor living area is the courtyard on the western side of our house, which is just north of the proposed pavilion. We're concerned that smoke from the chimney of this proposed pavilion could impact the enjoyment of this outdoor space. The other point is that given that the eastern wall of this proposed pavilion will immediately abut the existing boundary retaining wall between our property and 14 Chester Road, we would like to request that if the council approves the development application, it imposes a condition on the property owner for the building permit holder to obtain a BA20 prior to the issue of a building permit. This is to ensure that the builder carries out works on the adjacent or on or adjacent to the boundary in an orderly and proper manner, in accordance with details provided by a structural engineer to ensure the integrity of the existing structures that form part of the adjoining property. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now calling Alex McGlue of Perth, please.
Thank you, councillors. I am a lawyer acting for the owners of 12 Chester Road, who are the next door neighbours for the purpose of item 13.2.4. 4 weeks ago today, I wrote to the town to ask whether this development application was coming back to council on reconsideration at any point. And unfortunately, I was only advised about this yesterday. I have, however, quickly reviewed the materials and prepared this deputation, and the submission I make is that this development application should be refused or alternatively deferred. My clients have also had the opportunity to review the revised plans, and they remain gravely concerned as to the potential impact of this development on their property. I've also earlier today emailed to the town a copy of a planning submission from my client's planning consultant, Developed, and I endorse what is said in that submission. The officer report in the agenda refers to 5 remaining design areas where the discretion of council is needed, and they relate to the topics of boundary walls, the front fence, sight lines, visual privacy, and building height. Now, the way the R-codes work is that if you don't satisfy the default standards, you need to address what's known as the design principles. So council should only be approving this if they are satisfied about compliance with the design principles on all of these 5 design points. Unfortunately, the officers in the report have not directly addressed the design principles. Instead, they've taken an approach of saying the redesign is less impactful than the old design, so it should be accepted. Respectfully, that's not the correct way to apply the R-codes, and it does not provide council the proper guidance. And just as an example of this point, in relation to the boundary wall with the proposed outbuilding, one of the relevant design principles reads, does not have any adverse impact on the amenity of the adjoining property. Now, what the approach taken in the report is that the impact is not as great as it previously was. Respectfully, that is the wrong question, and council will be stepping into legal error if it approaches things in that manner. A major concern from my clients is the proposed extended balcony on the upper level. Now, the officer report does not seem to mention the size of this extension, but it appears from the plans to be quite significant. This gives rise to a clear and almost undeniable overlooking issue into my client's backyard. Now, the suggested solution to this overlooking issue is to plant some trees and hope that they will grow. This is an utterly unreliable solution in the circumstances. Now, the report explains that the trees, when they're first planted, will be 1.6 to 2 metres in height. Well, you might as well have me stand at the boundary and hope that the visual impact issue is resolved. That's obviously not going to work in the short term at least. even if these trees do grow to a large size, what happens if the owner removes them in future or prunes them? Or what happens if a new owner of the property isn't aware of this issue and removes them or prunes them? Now, the town could try to take enforcement action there, but the town can't realistically go onto this property and plant new trees itself. So I'd invite the town to conclude that the proposal does not satisfy the R codes on visual impact. In relation to heritage, now this is obviously a grand old building, and the heritage should be taken seriously. The report says that the heritage aspects have been referred to the National Trust and looked at by the town's heritage officer. Now, I'm not sure why this has gone to the National Trust, because the National Trust is not actually a regulator. This should have gone to the heritage branch of the Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage, who are responsible for administering the Heritage Act of WA. In relation to the town's heritage officer, I could not find their details online, so I'm not sure what their qualifications are or whether they're a qualified heritage architect. But depending on the position in that regard, I would say that this development application should be supported by an assessment from an independent heritage architect before any approval is granted. I will add that the plans in the agenda appeared to be blurry and low resolution, so a lot of the content is ineligible, which made it difficult to review. And in that vein, I'll conclude by saying that if councillors are concerned about the impact of these works on my client or the other neighbour, refuse. Similarly, if you don't properly understand what these works are, or you don't understand what the impacts might be, then you should refuse or alternatively defer to the next council meeting to obtain some more information. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Now calling Daniela Murcher of Perth, please.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and councillors. Tonight I'm here speaking on behalf of the landowner in support of item 13.2.4 for the reconsidered proposal for 14 Chester Road in Claremont. Firstly, I would like to thank the town's officers for the time and care they've given into this matter and for the constructive way we have worked through the amended plans. This has been a lengthy process and we do appreciate the officers' recommendation to support the revised proposal. In December 2024, an application for alterations and additions was refused by the council. At the outset, it is important to recognise that the application now before you is not the same proposal that was originally refused. The original refusal raised concerns with the proposed carport setback, the bulk and presentation of the pavilion walls, sightlines at the crossover, and visual privacy from the upper floor veranda, and the broader relationship of the additions to the heritage character of the site and surrounding area. Since then, the matter has gone through SAT, mediations, further discussions with the town, and multiple rounds of amended plans. With respect to the proposed modifications, most significantly, the carport that was previously proposed within the front setback has been removed entirely. This was a key issue of the original refusal, and its removal goes a long way to addressing council's concerns. The rear pavilion that has also been revised has significantly reduced the height of the boundary wall and its visual bulk and to improve the relationship with the adjoining properties. The design has clearly evolved in response to the early concerns, and that is reflected in the reconsideration proposal and the amended plans. I take council now to page 334 of the agenda. On this plan, we can see where the pavilion wall sits in relation to the buildings on the neighbouring properties, specifically number 4 Agate Street. You can see here that the pavilion wall sits almost entirely alongside the wall of number 4 Agate, which has no windows in this wall. And the chimney, the concerns raised by the neighbour, the chimney will not be a working chimney, just to confirm that. Okay, now with respect to, and then I'll also take council to page 332 of the agenda. Sorry, let's go to sorry. Oh, are they different? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, this is what was, yeah. Okay. Well, we can, all right, well, maybe we'll skip that one then. Okay.
That's fine. You can continue with your
Yeah, I will
explanation.
continue.
We've
Okay.
read the report.
Right, sure. Now, the sightlines issue has also been redressed through amendments to the front fence and the crossover design, allowing greater visibility for vehicles reversing out onto Chester Avenue. With respect to the visual privacy concerns, the upper floor, the balcony has been amended to illustrate, so the balcony to remain as per the existing balcony approved by the town in 1986. There is a small portion of the balcony that extends beyond the existing approved balcony, which is set back 7.1 metres from the neighbouring boundary. We understand the requirement is 7.5 metres, so we're asking council for a variation of roughly 350 mils from the side setback. To address that issue, we have proposed planting to be placed along the boundary, which is in addition to the existing landscaping that the neighbours currently have. In addition, in relation to the heritage outcomes of the proposal, that is now clearly supported, it is now clearly supported more broadly. The town has referred the amended plans to the National Trust of Western Australia, who has no objections to the amended plans, and the town's heritage officer is satisfied that the revised proposal conserves the significant heritage fabric of the place while introducing new works that are sympathetic and complementary to the original dwelling. The officer report goes further still, noting that the modified works will help restore a significant heritage home and make a positive contribution to the surrounding streetscape. Overall, this application is a good example of the planning process working the way it should. Concerns were raised, the applicant listened, the plans were amended, and the proposal that has come back to council is a much more refined and responsive outcome. For those reasons, and with the appreciation of the officer's recommendation and support, we respectfully ask council to approve the reconsidered application. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 7, applications for leave of absence, nil. Item 8, petitions, deputations and presentations. Council receives a petition from Dr Warren Lilliman of Claremont requesting restricted 2-hour parking be implemented on Scott Street, Claremont. I have a mover and a seconder. Moved to Councillor Gersey, seconded Councillor Main. All those in favour? Carried. No dissent. Item 9, confirmation of minutes from the previous meeting. Mover and a seconder, Councillor Swan moved and Councillor Brown seconded. All those in favour? Carried. No dissent. Item 10, announcement of confidential matters for which the meeting may be closed to the public is nil. And item 11, business not dealt with from a previous meeting is nil. Now we're going to item 12, reports of committee, 12.1.1. Minutes of the Foreshore Advisory Committee meeting held on the 19th of February 2026. To receive the minutes of the Foreshore Advisory Committee meeting held on the 19th of February 2026. A mover and a seconder. Moved Councillor Swan, seconded Deputy Mayor Kelly. Councillor Swan. Deputy Kelly. All those in favour? Carried. No dissent. 12.2.1, minutes of the Lake Claremont Advisory Committee held on the 12th of February 2026. To receive the minutes of the Lake Claremont Advisory Committee held on the 12th of February 2026. Mover, please. Councillor Gersey, and a seconded Councillor Brown. Councillor Gersey. No, Councillor Brown. Anyone else like to speak for? Against? All those in favour? Carried. No dissent. Item 13, reports of the CEO. 13.1.1, review of infrastructure policies. A mover and a seconder. Moved Councillor seconded. No? Councillor Main. Councillor Cameron. Well, you can. Yeah.
Look, I don't have anything to add, really. This is a procedural thing. We spent some time going through these policies, and I'm happy to
Councillor Main.
Nothing further to add, thank you.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Kelly.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. My amendment, which I think is already pre-prepared somewhere, is simply to remove the last dot point, which is policy LG 527, and the reason is for council to consider amending the policy once more detail is provided around the staff private use of council vehicles.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Kelly. Have we got a seconder for that? Councillor Fernandez.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, we have been provided with some information just before the meeting tonight. The way the policy is written at the moment is that it's very generic. I have no idea from the policy as to how many staff have complete freedom of use at our expense for private use of the motor vehicles. And some, I'm assuming some also have capacity to drive the vehicles home and return them, and some will have them included in their contractual arrangements. I think the private use of a council vehicle is something that the council should have some determination over. For example, in the public sector, in a similar circumstance where you're dealing with public property. Employees of the state government are identified as to who can have a private vehicle, what sort of usage it is, whether you can teach your 17-year-old to drive in that vehicle, whether you can take it interstate, how many can you take it on long service leave, those sorts of conditions. And I think those sorts of conditions should be referred to in the policy so that we are very clear as to what the cost to the council is of the private use of those vehicles, because it is effectively a subsidy for this town. Our fuel usage, even in tonight's agenda, I think is around $5,500 a month. Now, I'm sure a good portion of that is actually private use, but I have actually no idea because I'm not sure how many people have the capacity to take vehicles wherever they want to go. So that's why I think we do need some more detail as part of this policy, because at the moment it's all totally, the way the policy is written, it's entirely up to the discretion of the CEO as to what those arrangements are. And it's expenditure of public money, and I think for private use, and I think that we do need to have some sort of surveillance of that. Thank you.
Councillor Fernandez.
Nothing further to add.
Anyone else like to speak for the amendment? Anyone else like to speak against or put it? All those in favour? Carried. No dissent. We'll go back to the substantive motion now with the amendment. Anyone like to speak for? Anyone like to speak against? No? We'll put it as amended. All those in favour? Carried. No dissent. Item 13.1.2, review of the Code of Conduct for Council members, committee members and candidates. A mover and a seconder. Moved Deputy Mayor Kelly, seconded Councillor Swan. Deputy Mayor Kelly.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, this is relatively straightforward because we now fortunately have a standard code of conduct throughout local government, which I think is much better than having 139 different codes of conduct with different provisions. And all we're doing is really updating it in terms of changes to regulations, etc. So it's pretty straightforward.
Councillor Swan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I agree. It's great that we've got this standard model code. It does in particular introduce amendments relating to behavioural complaints being referred to the local government inspector and the ability for the local government inspector to appoint and monitor. So we need to ensure that those are included. So I think this is a great addition. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone else like to speak for? Anyone like to speak against? I'll speak for. I commend the CEO for also including, in terms of efficiency of all around this table, the ability for elected members to raise concerns directly at a director level. So we acknowledge that, and thank you, the CEO, for that suggestion in the Code of Conduct. We'll move it. All those in favour? Carried, no dissent. 13.1.3, Walga Electoral Reform Discussion Paper Response. A mover and a seconder. Move Councillor Gertzi. Seconded. No. Oh, there we go. Councillor Fernandez. Yes. Councillor Gertzi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As we all know, compulsory voting in the eastern states has completely changed the way local governments operate, as it's enabled political parties to become involved in local governments, and now the councillors in those local governments vote in blocks along political lines, and so that they do not necessarily represent the interests of their local communities. In the eastern states, the political parties also endorse the candidates and fund their campaigns. So the elected members are then beholden to the political parties and not to their residents. We, as councillors, are required by the Act to come to every meeting with an open mind, to listen to the debate and to vote according to what is in the best interest of our residents. We are not allowed to indicate ahead of the debate how we're going to vote on any issue. And yet, when political politics is involved, councillors are forced to vote along party lines, which goes totally against the role of us in local government, and our role is not only to be independent, but to vote independently as well. Making voting compulsory does not mean that people automatically become more interested in local government. It just increases the risk of voting along party lines, and it increases the risk of donkey votes and informal votes. To increase the turnout of voters, I believe that the introduction of online voting would engage a younger demographic. I know you've all heard me say this before. I think online voting would increase the total voter participation. At the last census, we were able to complete our census form online, and we were given a one-time PIN to submit our form. I've voted for various boards the same way, with a one-time PIN being allocated to each vote. This worked for the census, and I believe it would work for local government elections as well. So rather than making voting compulsory, I think we would encourage the younger generation to vote through online voting. So this is something I'd be very interested in encouraging. With regards to the frequency of elections, I support retaining the existing system of half the councillors being elected every 2 years. This enables the retention of experienced councillors and enables a gradual and incremental change in the makeup of council. With the current system, there is a retained knowledge of long-term strategic goals and a familiarity with how council functions with at least half of the councillors. I believe that it takes at least 2 years to become familiar with all aspects of council, and in an all-out scenario, every 4 years, that leaves the council vulnerable to the loss of experience and knowledge, with the potential for the council to be struggling with its role in the first couple of years. Unlike state and federal politicians, local councillors do not have any personal administration staff to help them do their job, and I think the CEO would find it extremely difficult to function with a completely new and inexperienced council. I believe that the current system is tried and true. It's functioning well across the vast majority of the state, and so I think we should keep the current system. I support the officer's recommendation for this item.
Thank you, Councillor Gertzi. Councillor Fernandez.
I'll start with the 2-year system. I'm in favour of that, and I'm in favour of the status quo. I think 2 years provides continuity, stability, and knowledge retention, ensuring experienced councillors remain to guide new members. I can't tell you how invaluable it is to have all my experienced councillors around me to give me advice on matters, and I really appreciate their support. Valka notes that the staggered elections reduce the risk of a sudden disruptive change to the entire council, and this is why we should continue to support it. The biennial model also allows for regular opportunities for community participation, giving potential candidates a chance to nominate every 2 years. So moving to full spills means that the community has to wait 4 years before they can have a say on how things are going on the council, which sort of will build frustration with them. Under full spill model, there's also the likelihood of extraordinary vacancies increasing significantly, which could force local governments into expensive by-elections. If we decide to move to a full spill, you know, where we're doing all the councillors every 4 years, I would be in favour. I would be in favour of compulsory voting, because I think if we don't have compulsory voting, there's a high likelihood of a single issue sort of dominating the election, and you're getting single issue councillors sort of running in. I acknowledge Councillor Gertzi's concern about donkey voting and, you know, political party infiltration, but at the same time, I think the danger is greater of having, you know, fringe candidates getting elected and sort of bringing the local government into disrepute. Yep, that's me.
Thank you, Councillor Fernandez. Anyone like to speak for? Deputy Mayor Kelly.
I have an amendment, Mr. Mayor.
Sure, go for it. Thank you, Paul.
One I prepared earlier. It's quite a simple amendment. Yeah, sorry, I haven't proofread what, yeah. So it's a third item on with the recommendation, so that should there be a change to a 4-year spill, then this is to commence for the 2029 election. The reason being to ensure that 50% of all elected members that participated in the 2025 election are able to fulfil their terms as per the legislation at the time of their nomination.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Swan. Deputy Mayor Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's pretty straightforward. If the government is going to introduce 4-year terms with a full spill, then I think 50% of the total number of elected members in Western Australia at this point in time went to the last election expecting to have a 4-year term, and I think that should be honoured. It also means that in 2027, at the next election, there would be a 2-year term, but people would be nominating knowing that it would be a 2-year term. So they're doing it with the full knowledge that it is for 2 years. So what this is suggesting to the government is that if you are going to proceed, we don't know whether they are or not, but if they were to be of a mind to proceed, that it be introduced in 2029 rather than 2027. And I liken it to sort of retrospective tax legislation. I mean, people organise their affairs, they're nominated for council with the expectation that they would be fulfilling it for the 4-year term. And I think that should be respected by the government at this point in time. And if they do, if they are of a mind to make a change, then it's done in 2029. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Swan.
Yeah, I think it's fair and reasonable to add that to our recommendation, so happy to support. Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak for? Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm a bit confused as to what I'm speaking for now because of the amendment. But if we approve the amendment, do I still get to speak in favour of? Okay, that's all I needed to clarify. Thank you.
Anyone like to speak against? Anyone like to speak for? We'll put the amendment. All those in favour? Carried, no dissent. Go back to the substantive motion with the amendment now. Anyone like to speak for? Councillor Cameron, here we are.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've lost my notes now. I think the councillors have spoken before me have both got very legitimate points, and that's the thing about this argument. I think there are legitimate arguments for both sides, for both points, but on balance, I'm inclined to support the current system for the following reasons. And first of all, compulsory voting. We currently spend approximately $130,000 every 4 years. And we don't spend as much as some other councils because of our size. Some of the estimates have suggested that compulsory voting could multiply this by up to a factor of 5. I think the current voter turnout reflects ratepayers' interest in local government, and therefore the increase in cost to them is not justified. Like Councillor Goetze, I'm all in favour of pursuing electronic voting, and I think we have discussed that in previous council meetings. So I think I agree with the view compulsory voting has the potential to turn local government into another arm of the political class, and I don't think this is a good thing for our community. And if you believe that, then compulsory voting will increase the cost of campaigning for independent candidates as they are forced to compete with the larger political organisations. With regards to 2 or 4 year cycles, having come to the conclusion that voluntary voting is the better option for local councils, I believe the current staggered 2-year election cycle better suits local government. The issue with a single 4-year election and voluntary voting is that the election could become a single issue election, and a small group of disaffected ratepayers could have a disproportionate influence on the election result. And this could lead to good, experienced councillors losing their seats unfairly. When reflecting on my own experience, I failed in my first attempt to join the council, and under the current system I was able to run again in 2 years' time and was ultimately successful. Had I been required to wait another 4 years, I may not have been in a position to run again. So I think the current 2-year cycle gives more opportunity for potential candidates to run for election. Once elected, I was the beneficiary of guidance and mentoring from existing councillors. This has been invaluable and allowed me to be an effective councillor in a much more timely manner, speeding up the learning process. So for these reasons, I'm inclined to support the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. Anyone like to speak against? Anyone against? Councillor Swan.
I am in favour of parts of it and not in favour of the other part. I actually support a 4-year spill. I think that voter fatigue is a thing. I think voting every 2 years and having the local government election and the state election in the same year can cause confusion. A lot of people sometimes don't even really understand the difference between local government and state government. So I think that might give us some clarity. It also reduces staff workload and may help with the rising election costs, potentially. But for me, voter fatigue is a big issue. However, I am in favour of voluntary voting. I 100% agree that if we go into compulsory voting, I think then people who don't really care just tend to vote along party lines. We definitely don't want that, and I think we want people that want community first, which is what we currently have in this council, which is a massive, important factor. Yeah, I would like a combination of the two. I'm in favour of a 4-year full spill, but to retain voluntary voting. Thank you.
Anyone like to speak for? Councillor Main.
I actually am in agreement with all the other councillors and believe in voluntary, and also I like I've been on council now for 11 years, and we've never had a party political member of our council. And when I've heard it happening in other councils, it's been very divisive, and I just feel sometimes they don't even stay the full term, and they don't have the local community in the front of their mind. It's more about a block of people, and of course it is not in our remit to have a block of people anyway. I'm actually ambivalent about 2 or 4 years. Cost-wise, photo fatigue, I agree, but I feel that if we make it 4 years, the party political advantage will be greater, and we will have joint tickets and campaigning with all 8 or however many councillors there are in one go, and they will have great advantage over a local community representative. So I've tipped over in that. I can understand councillors' one's concerns, but that's the way I felt.
Thank you, Councillor Moon. Anyone like to speak against? Anyone like to speak for? Deputy Mayor Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, this is quite a vexed issue, and it's particularly vexed in a state like Western Australia, where you have 139 councils, the largest number of any state in Australia. In fact, you could probably add a couple of states together and you still wouldn't get to 139 councils. There's a little booklet that the Local Government Association puts out with some data in terms of each council and how many elected members there are, and how many residents and how many electors. I happened to pick it up tonight before I came, and I flicked it open to a random page. And the random page is Manjimup, Meekatharra, Melville and Menzies. So in Manjimup, you have 6,847 voters. In Meekatharra, you have 411 voters. City of Melville, 73,000 voters. Shire of Menzies, 214 electors. So in order to have a system that can deal with that kind of diversity, I think is a real challenge. There's no question in my mind, having been Deputy President of the Association on the board of the Australian Local Association, that when I attend those board meetings of the Australian Local Government Association, it is clear as the nose on your face what political allegiance is sitting around that table, unlike the 2 representatives from Western Australia. In fact, there was a time when well, there's been a number of times when I've phoned the at one time president of the association, and the answer service was, "Thank you for calling so-and-so and so-and-so. I am the Labor member for this particular council." So it is that blatant. And you may recall, I think about 2 years ago in New South Wales, the Liberal Party forgot to put in the nominations in time for local government elections, and over 120 councillors and mayors were ineligible to run in the election. So the party actually puts in your nomination. Now, that's what I don't want in Western Australia. And if that's going to be what comes from 4-year spills or compulsory voting, I'd be against that. But the point I'm trying to make is that if you have a very small council, when I say council, a number of electors, and I think there's one council with about 100, and you go to 4-year terms, and there's one issue, right? One issue that upsets the community, everybody's out. Everybody's out, likely to be out in the next election. So I think it's a very high-risk strategy. I can appreciate for large metropolitan councils, 4-year terms and compulsory voting is probably attractive because there is an element of some politicisation in some councils, I believe, but I think 4-year terms and compulsory voting will cement it unreasonably into the West Australian local government electoral system. So I don't support either. Even if you look at the paper that was produced by the association, which is very thorough.
Deputy Mayor Kelly, you're at 5. Would you like an extension? Would you like an extension? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Swan?
Give me
Councillor Brown? All those in favour? Carried.
Give me a minute now. I've already
Okay.
lost my train of thought. So there's no question in my mind that there is an element of politicisation in Western Australia and some of these larger councils, but I don't think we should legislate it into Western Australia. I think the current system works well, and we've heard sitting around the table tonight 2 relatively new councillors that are fully supportive of coming into a council with existing elected members. Now, that's not to say that's not going to continue. In fact, the data in the association's report that's in our agenda, I think the best they could find was that it's only happened about 4 times in the other states where the whole council had been removed. And maybe there is need to do that sometimes. So, look, I support the recommendation, particularly with the addition of the amendment, which is that if they do choose to introduce, excuse me, 4-year terms, that it, and certainly not from my own interest, but I think that it's only fair and reasonable that people are allowed to fulfil the term in which they nominated for. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone like to speak against? Anyone like to speak for? I'll speak for. Just briefly, in regard to the 2-year term, I think I appreciate what Councillor Cameron was saying about that, and certainly happened even in my own case, where I ran for election, was not successful, and then had that opportunity in another 2 years' time. It's certainly, if you've, as we are, have other lives outside of this chamber, it allows you to continue that train of thought with your family, that's what you're committed to, and then the next opportunity is kind of just around the corner. So I'll put it, all those in favour? Carried. No dissent. Okay, yeah. Okay, in accordance with section 5.2.1 of the Town of Claremont Meeting Procedures Local Law, item 13.2.4 be brought forward for consideration. Have a mover and a seconder, that's Chester. Chester Road. Yeah. Councillor Mayne and a seconder, moving that item forward. Councillor Fernandez, yeah. All those in favour of moving that forward? Carried. No dissent. We're moving that item forward. You can stay on for the rest of the council meeting. You may not. We won't be easily offended by that. Okay. Okay. Item 13.2.4, 14 Chester Road, Claremont, reconsideration of decision. I move the amendment that council defer the consideration. No, sorry, I move that council defer consideration of this item to the ordinary council meeting of the 28th of April 2026. In the event that an extension for the determination does not extend to that date, the Mayor will call a special council meeting to consider the application. And the reason being that we consider the elements of the proposal put forward. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Gertie? Yeah. Thank you. We've heard tonight, we've had deputations from members of the community in regard to this. I wasn't on council when it first came, but further consideration of that, given it will be another, could be another month, it may be less than that. I think further consideration of this item would be beneficial for all concerned. Councillor. Pardon? Yes, Councillor Swan.
When was the kind of the timeline on this, the deadline to?
Councillor Getsy.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I agree with the refer back because we haven't had very long to consider this item. The neighbours haven't had long to consider this item, and I think it would be fair to all people concerned if more time was given to consider all the aspects of this application.
Deputy Mayor Kelly.
Sorry to do this, but can I just check, is this a procedural motion to refer the item back, or what is it? Because we don't have the item moved and seconded to actually do anything. It's just lobbed in as an amendment. And second point is, I don't quite understand the reason for council to consider the elements of the proposal put forward. Can that be elaborated on a little? It's just that it has a completely different way of handling it. If it's a referral back as a procedural motion, there's no debate. So it's pretty important.
So, Councillor, no, it's not a procedural motion. Procedural motions would be to adjourn debate. The Mayor is simply resolving that it's an alternative, so, which would allow it. So what this means is that deferred means it may not necessarily be exactly the same item that comes back to council. It could be a changed item, taking into account any new information that's either been raised tonight or maybe raised in between now and that agenda being prepared. So it's really just a normal motion.
Except that but it was listed as an amendment. I was trying to figure it out whether it's procedural or not. But my second question was in relation to the reason. I don't get much of an idea from, and I just think it's important publicly that we make it very clear why we're actually referring it, because I'm not sure what consider the elements of the proposal put forward.
Look, I think we've heard from the community tonight. The item, as you know, from the agenda was put to us on Thursday. Elements of that proposal were blurry in the agenda. There was some discussion, I believe, regarding about who was informed and who was not informed and timeframes. So all things considered, Deputy Mayor Kelly, that's why I'm putting forward that particular reason. And it may go through to the 28th of April, or it may be sooner.
My preference would have to be a bit more explanatory to say that, you know, given the short time frame before the reconvene of the SAT, that we have more time to consider input from the community and make it clear that the neighbours have only just been recently notified. Include that as well.
Right, thank you.
We'll include that. Fulsome explanation.
As per Councillor Kelly's, I agree. Thank you. Anyone like to speak for? Or speaking for?
To speak for.
Councillor Cameron.
Yeah, look, I think this is a very good alternate motion. I don't feel like I've had long enough to look at both sides of this argument. I was feeling like I was being forced to make a decision without all the information, and I would personally appreciate the extra time to review the information we've only received today.
Anyone like to speak against? Anyone like to speak for? No, we'll put it. All those in favour? Carried. No dissent. Thank you. Moving back to the original running order now. 13.1.4 Bayview Community Centre Cafe lease. I'll just leave the room. Deputy Mayor Kelly, could you take proceedings, please?
Okay, thank you, Council. Do I now have a mover for item 13.1. List of payments? Get away. 13.1.4 Bayview Community Centre Cafe lease. Do I have a mover and second? Councillor Cameron moved. Seconder. Councillor Swan. Councillor Cameron.
Can I ask advice about at what stage I move an amendment?
Well, it's a bit tricky. If you've moved it, you probably shouldn't have moved it.
I thought I was able to.
You can, but you can. No, it doesn't matter.
All right, well, if it makes it.
Okay. Do you move it? We're switching. Okay. You wish to speak, Councillor Goetze?
Yes, thank you. Yes, I'm very disappointed that the cafe at the community centre has not been successful. I had high hopes for it when it first started. I had high hopes that it might be another tea box cafe, which we all know is a thriving community facility. But the cafe at the community centre is currently not operating and has not been operating for some time. And I understand that we cannot force them to operate, so it would seem to me logical to allow them to surrender the lease so that we can make alternative arrangements for the facility.
Thank you, Councillor Goetze. Councillor Swan?
Yes, I agree with that sentiment. In theory, it seemed like a great idea to have a cafe inside the community centre. It hasn't worked out for whatever reason, but in due course, I think it is a great space. So I do note that Officer Recommendation 4 notes a further report will be provided to Council on future options for the site. So I look forward to that discussion in due course. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Cameron, I believe you have an amendment.
Look, I do, and it's only a relatively small thing, but I'd like to change the number 1 to surrender of licence to be the 30th of April, and point 3, I'd like to change that date to the 1st of May 2026. Yeah, so that's
so
it.
The first one was to April, 1st of April?
Yeah.
1 April. And
And point 3 change that to the 1st of May.
1st of May.
As opposed to the 1st of March.
Right. Do I have a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Fernandez.
Do we need a reason? Well, the reason is it'll more reflect, should the council agree to terminate the lease, it would more reflect the reality of when the tenant or leasee would be able to leave the premises. They still have stuff there, and they would need to make good.
We just need a reason.
Yep. So more accurately reflect the reality should the council agree to terminate the lease.
Okay, that's it. Happy with that? Do we need a...
Seek some clarification on part 3, because it does still say from 1st of May 2026, then onwards, depending on, I'm assuming you don't need the onwards dependent, it's now just set at 1st of May?
Yeah. So you delete everything in the parenthesis and replace it with the 1st of May.
Yeah.
And I think the reason it would more accurately reflect when the lessee's use of the premises ends or finishes.
Yeah, not necessarily the use of the premises, but just more reflect the timing of the cancellation.
Yeah, because I think the lease doesn't finish till August. Is it August? Wish to speak to it, Councillor Cameron?
To my amendment?
You wish to speak to your amendment?
Yeah, look, okay. I think when dealing with commercial leases on a council asset, we've got an obligation to maximise returns on behalf of the ratepayers. In this instance, the licensee's not been able to grow the business as they'd hoped. It's not suggested that anything has changed or that the council is in any way at fault. Under normal commercial terms, the licensee would be required to keep paying the rent and outgoings until a suitable replacement was found. However, the current operator comes with a good reputation and track record. As such, it is unlikely that another operator would do better. And I think I've just spoken for the whole. Okay. But that'll do for now.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Fernandes.
Nothing further to add. I think it's a good amendment.
Any speakers against the amendment? Councillor Mayne.
I understand the fact that we should be hard and fast with our leases and how we treat our lessees, but I feel that the guy's tried hard. He's making a loss, and all we're doing is adding 2 months' rent to his to that, and we're sort of kicking the can down the road about when we could be looking at assessing options, and we could be doing it straight away. And I feel a bit sorry for him compared to you guys.
Thank you, Councillor Mayne. Speaker 4. Councillor Swan.
I think that we are being very fair. We're listing I understand that the tenant still has equipment in the facility. So I think this more accurately reflects the situation. I think we are being very fair and reasonable because we could keep the lease going until we find a replacement, which we are not intending to do because he is a good community member. So I think this is a fair compromise. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Swan. Any other speakers for? Speakers against? Councillor Cameron, you wish to close the debate? I therefore put the amendment. All those in favour? Those against? Declare it carried. Councillor Mayne against. We now move to the recommendation as amended. Do I have any? Who moved it? Who moved? Oh, sorry. Yes, you did. Yeah, sorry. Speakers, because you did speak to the motion. Yeah. Speakers against the amended motion? Speakers for? Wish to close? Oh, sorry.
Sorry, a couple of things. I think Councillor Swan kind of hit on the head. I think there is a lot of potential in this site. I think it's unfortunate. I guess the cafe hasn't worked at the moment, but the feedback I've gotten, particularly from a lot of younger members of the community, that this is a great space. I still feel that, this can be, a T-box equivalent, provided we kind of get the right layout. So I'm looking forward, I guess, to item 4 about the further report and what the future options are, but I still think there's a lot of potential in this site. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Goetze, you wish to close the debate?
No,
I therefore
no,
put
nothing
the
further.
motion as amended. All those in favour? Declare it carried unanimously. Thank you.
Item 13.1.5, list of payments 1 to 28th of February. A mover and a seconder. Moved Councillor Swan, seconded Deputy Mayor Kelly. Councillor Swan, Deputy Mayor Kelly. No. All those in favour? Carried, no dissent. 13.1.6, monthly statement of financial activity for the period ended 28th of February 2026. Mover and a seconded. Moved Councillor Main, seconded Councillor Cameron. Councillor Main. Councillor Cameron? No. Councillor Swan? No. Councillor... Go on, say something. Anything? No? No? All those in favour? Carried, no dissent. Okay. 13.2.1, introduction of 40-kilometre speed zones. Have we still got Councillor Franklin there in a little box? Yep. Hello. Hello. Can't see it. Hello. Hello, Councillor Franklin. Just checking on you. Yep. Okay. A mover. Councillor
I
Main.
was hoping to move with an amendment, please.
Okay. Right. We'll have a general mover. Someone else?
It should be able to come up on...
Councillor Deputy Mayor Kelly and a seconder. And Councillor Brown. Deputy Mayor Kelly.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I'm pleased to see this come back. I noticed that the recommendation is to slow down the process, but I think it's worth still considering, and I know what the amendment is, and I fully support the amendment. So,
Councillor Brown. Okay, here we go. Councillor Main.
The amendment notes, I would wish that it notes the requirement of Main Roads West Australia in relation to the implementation of 40 kilometres an hour speed zones with the local government areas. Authorises the Chief Executive Officer to undertake community consultation with residents to seek feedback on the introduction of a 40 kilometre per hour speed limit on local roads, including feedback in relation to their respective local road, and defers a decision on the implementation of 40 kilometres per hour speed zones within the town of Claremont pending further investigation by administration into the mechanisms, costs and outcomes associated with the Perth Inner City Group initiative once operational.
Yeah, Councillor Main, do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Goetze. Councillor Main.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Everyone would have noticed that the 40 kilometre per hour signs are up on Stirling Highway, our busiest road, and during school times, but it was the community that, through our working group with traffic, came together, and the parents and schools thought that it was a really good idea to try and get the perspective that it can be safe to walk and ride to school. And I feel that there's a groundswell there for the for this 40 kilometre an hour speed limit in our local town. Vincent has done this very successfully. They're a very similar town to ours, so I believe that it will be very easy for us to look at their success and hopefully piggyback off that. I also feel that we need community consultation to start with, so that we know for sure what the community wants.
Thank you, Councillor Main. Councillor Goetze.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Even just this afternoon, I was walking my dog and two people completely, without me saying anything to them, came up to me in the park and asked me what we could do about slowing traffic down on the roads. And I said, well, actually, we have an item tonight. So I got a lot of kudos for that, for having an item on council for tonight. But obviously with our increased urban infill, our roads are getting busier, and I think the community would like to have a say about the speed on the roads. So I very much support community consultation to find out what our residents think. And it's wonderful that we've got Vincent already having successful implementation, that we can follow along and see what the positives and negatives that come out of their implementation to help us as well. So I support the amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Goetz, anyone like to speak for or against the amendment? Deputy Mayor Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I think it's a great amendment, and I recognise the recommendations from the administration, but we do need to, I think, continue to socialise the thinking around this. It's not going to be easy. There'll be some people that will be objecting and some people that won't be supportive of it. So I'm very happy that we proceed to some form of consultation. It actually puts us in a better position in terms of thinking what to do in the future. So we've already flagged it previously at a previous council meeting, and I think moving to some form of consultation on discussion around the topic is an excellent move. Thank you.
Anyone like to speak against? Anyone like to speak for? Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'd like to commend Councillor Mayne on this work. I think it's a great idea. The particular bit of the amendment I like is the consultation, community consultation. I remember when you first brought this to council, it was followed very quickly by a letter to the Post saying, who does she think she is? You know, did she tell everybody when she was running for election that this is what she was going to do? It's essentially put this out there for community consultation so people can say they have had their say. They might not agree with it, but at least it'll be part of the process. So I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else like to speak to the amendment? Councillor Swan.
I'd also like to commend Councillor Mayne on this amendment. I think the beauty of having community consultation in this regard is that I agree with Councillor Kelly. I think there will be people that are for and many people that will be against this. Once we have the outcomes, or we can look into the implementation and look at the mechanisms, costs and outcomes, then if we decide to move forward, I think education will be a major thing as well, because I think that people have a mindset relating to speed. So I think there's a lot of work to do in this space, but I think this methodology is the right way forward. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone like to speak against the amendment? Anyone like to speak for the amendment? Councillor Brown. Yep.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess I reiterate kind of what the other councillors have said here. I think this is a great initiative, a great strategy. You know, I recall when the speed limits dropped from 60 to 50. It was a great outcome. You know, I think if we can drop to 40, again, another great outcome. I've got young kids, so for whatever reason, the cars seem to be getting faster and faster, and I think also the influx of electric cars that are quieter, more difficult to hear. I think, you know, as a general rule, you know, seeing what the community thinks about lowering the speed limit is a great outcome. So I support this amendment. Thank you.
Let's put the amendment. All those in favour? Carried, no dissent. Go back to the substantive motion with the amendment. Anyone like to speak for? Anyone like to speak against?
Can I just say, look, fully supported, but when we do go out, let's make it very clear that we're only talking about local roads. And it's important that whatever document or whatever form the public consultation takes, so we make it quite clear that this isn't talking about distributed roads or Stirling Highway. This is local roads.
Councillor Mayne.
Yes, and interestingly, Vincent did do community consultation on their local roads before this initiative went through. And
Councillor, sorry.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, Councillor Mayne, proceed.
Oh, it was amendment.
No, that's okay. You're speaking to the amended motion.
And it was interesting that Vincent went to the community and had nearly 100% positive encouragement to do it from their residents. And one of the questions was, would you like to have 40 kilometres on your local road? And that was a great game changer, because they weren't thinking about driving down Stirling Highway or another road. They were thinking about their children or them crossing the road or they're taking their dogs for a walk. And I think that that's very important, and that's why the community consultation is so important early on. And it was even more interesting that after it came in, the community consultation went out again and everyone was really happy with it. So times are changing, and I think people are changing and more people are walking. I heard that our train lines went from 2 million to 3 million in the last 6 months. And of course it's because of increases in petrol, but I also think it's because it has got home at last that this sort of change is coming. And I like the thought that Claremont's ahead of the game, and if we can keep this kicking down the road so that we've got our ducks in a row as soon as we can, it'd be great to bring it in. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Mayne. Anyone like to speak against? Anyone like to speak for? I'll speak for. Thank you, Councillor Mayne, for bringing this, and thank you for your extracurricular work on the other committee in regard to this, or working group in regard to this. I think it's a known fact that we've got an issue with Davies Road, especially outside. Pardon? No, but I'm just saying, generally speaking, in terms of speed, we have an issue on some of our roads, Davies being one of them. Now, the treatments will apply differently. This is obviously, we're talking about a blanket treatment of local roads at 40, and we can reassure the community that the other spots around our community we're also addressing in different ways. So we will address Davies, we will address elements of Shenton up the top end as well in due course, or ask council to consider that. So I support the motion as amended. All those in favour? Carried. Notice it. 13.2.2 right-of-way strategy. A mover and a seconder. Moved Councillor Gursi, seconded Councillor Fernandez. Councillor Gursi, this has been a long time coming for you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This has been a long time coming, and I'm absolutely delighted with this draft right-of-way strategy. The proposed strategy is extremely detailed and offers very clear guidelines for the council going forward, and I congratulate the staff for producing such a comprehensive report. We have 79 laneways in Claremont, 57 of which are privately owned, and the cost of upgrading all the recommended laneways is significant. So the proposed 10-year timeframe, I think, is a very sensible way to deal with this issue, and it's the same way that we dealt with footpaths. We're now reaching the end of the 10-year timeframe for the slab footpath replacement, and so I'm very pleased with the proposal that we will start doing the laneways now. The maintenance of the laneways has been a long-term contentious issue with the residents, as council is prohibited from spending public money on the maintenance of private laneways. Over the years, I've been regularly contacted about this issue, and we currently have a petition from 32 residents regarding Cactus Lane. As you all know, of course, most of the laneways in Claremont were originally built as dunny cart lanes, but increased urban infill with many large blocks being subdivided has meant that laneways are used more and more as underwidth roadways, and many houses now have laneways as their primary access. The laneways were never intended to take the volume of traffic that they now contend with, and as 57 laneways are privately owned, often owned by deceased estates, there are a great many that are in a poor state of repair. The legal advice that we've been given states that in order to dedicate right-of-ways as under-width public roads, a clear and broadly based majority of support is required from the adjoining residents, and so public consultation is vital. So the council will provide public in-person consultation to the affected residents, as well as advertising the draft right-of-way policy document. And so I think that's an excellent way to communicate with the residents. The feedback from this then will come back to council for us to make a decision on the strategy and also to make a decision on the budget process. So I'm absolutely delighted to support the officer recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Goetze. Councillor Fernandez.
Yeah, I'm also delighted to support this. I think the strategy proposes a practical and legally supported solution in closing and dedicating key right-of-ways, including Cactus Lane, as underwidth public roads are under the Land Administration Act 1997. This is identified as the lowest risk pathway, giving the town full authority to construct, drain, light, and maintain these laneways to a consistent standard. So this will address the ability. This means that under current legislation, we will now be able to reconstruct and maintain these laneways. Importantly, the strategy also proposes a test reconstruction project, potentially using Cactus Lane once dedicated, and this will allow the town to verify engineering assumptions, refine cost estimates, and deliver upgrades in a staged and efficient manner. Adopting this strategy will allow the town to transition from a fragmented, inconsistent laneway system to one that is safe, functional, and managed under modern engineering standards. It addresses drainage issues, improves access, and enhances safety through lighting, and provides clarity to residents who have long sought sustainable solutions. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Fernandez. Anyone else like to speak in favour? Councillor Swan.
I commend the staff involved with this project. It was a mammoth task and it's a really well constructed strategy. There's significant work that's going to be taken and has been taken with map ownership and to understand the drainage impacts and to get the legal advice on the safest and most defensible pathway. Even though I'm sure this could be frustrating for residents who've been complaining about this for years, I think it's good that it's a staged approach, it's not rushed. It both respects the legal requirements that we're restricted to and also community expectations. It also means that we're not going to overcommit ratepayer funds until we have more accurate costings, which is great, and we'll get community support. So I think that this does respect residents' concerns, and it also is a managed approach to ensure our long-term financial sustainability as well. So I'm happy to endorse this recommendation as well. Thank you.
Anyone like to speak against? Anyone like to speak for? Councillor Mayne.
I agree with all the other councillors, and particularly Councillor Mayne, about financial, particularly myself. Well, I always agree with myself.
Other politicians do it, Councillor Mayne, so you're not the first.
Councillor Swan, we're in the enviable position of having our roads in really good condition compared to other councils, and our staff have been really on top of this since I started on council, and we fast-tracked our paths so that they became the correct width, the correct colour, standard, pulled up all the square pavers, and we're ahead of the game on all our paths, and we can now use some of that money in further direction, and as Councillor Zwan said, it will be a state of need as to when that happens, but we also are luxuriously able to afford to do our right-of-ways, which is a great position to be in.
Thank you, Councillor Mayne. Anyone against? Anyone for? Councillor Deputy Mayor Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is a very good exemplar of where we're moving forward with a backlog, and I don't really like to reference it, but our neighbour in the Netherlands recently produced a report talking about backlog in infrastructure work. If we were to do the same exercise, this $4 million would be on there. So it's a bit easy to look at all of your infrastructure that the town owns or is responsible for, and to add it up, well over 100 metres. So you know, it should be easily achievable, and I look forward to kicking off the project. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Kelly. Anyone like to speak against? Anyone like to speak for? No, I'll speak for. Just like to acknowledge the work that planner David Vinicum has done on this. Also directly liaising with his team in infrastructure and governance, and under the leadership of the CEO, Tim, to also make this clinch, to make this happen. It has been a long time coming, but sometimes things long time coming then come right. And I think, as Councillor Mayne had said, for us financially, this is the right time. As we come out of our footpaths to directly transition into the laneways, if you read the report, it clearly says the issues that Stirling faced when they took a different direction in funding, and if we decide to follow the officer's recommendation in this report for us to fund it, it's one less consideration for our community to have to consider. What they have to consider is if in the report their laneway is to come under the management of the town, that we will fund it according to the priorities that are clearly indicated in that report, 1 to 4. Is then part of the community consultation that they have between 70 and 75% acceptance that that lane will come across to management of the town. So the community consultation, as Councillor Suwan, is key here, and the 28 days, and about us actively pursuing community consultation in what has been a very complex area, for us to clearly explain the financial implications, not for them necessarily, but for the town, and how we'll manage it and how we can afford it, and then how we will help them go through the process of going from private ownership in some cases to ownership by the state government, and then effectively back to us under management. So I look forward to the consultation period, and I'm very pleased that we're at this point at this meeting tonight. Thank you. I'll put it. All those in favour? Carried, no dissent. 13.2.3, Claremont Town Centre Strategic Planning and Landscape Design Framework. I'm not going to make a habit of this, I promise our fellow elected members, but I've got alternative motion that Council requests the CEO review the study brief to address 1, clear depiction of the Claremont and Swanbourne town centres into separate projects, and 2, greater emphasis on the streetscape elements to be considered with the other elements contained in the scope. And the reason is that the attachment to the report, as opposed to the officer's recommendation, I believe the attachment, which will then go out to be the scope of work that we're effectively paying for, needs to be clearer in terms of the intent that we discussed at forums, that the intent that's discussed in elements of the officer's recommendation, and then flowing through to the actual scope of work. So the reason is I'd like the scope of work to be clearer in terms of our actual intent as we've built up over it, and for the intent regarding the town centre and also the Swanbourne precinct to be clearer, and they may have separate elements or needs in each for us to go out. So that's the alternate motion and the reason. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Cameron, second. Thank you. I've got nothing further to add. Councillor Cameron?
Yeah, and I like the alternative motion. I found the original one confusing. It refers to the town centres, plural in some sections, and then others, it looks like we're just talking about the Claremont Town Centre as opposed to Swanbourne. And I agree, I thought we discussed we wanted the two centres treated differently, but I don't think that is clear in the documentation.
Anyone like to speak for? Councillor Swan.
Yes, thank you for the alternate motion. Yeah, my thoughts were with the Claremont Town Centre. We were initially talking a lot about connectivity and pedestrian access and those sorts of things, as well as the aesthetic. Whereas with the Swanbourne Town Centre, yeah, it will have a different brief, in my opinion. So I think this is a great addition. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone like to speak against? Anyone like to speak for? I'll put it. All those in favour? Carried, no dissent. 13.2.5. Oh, sorry. Go back to, sorry. Apologies. Pardon? Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, there we go. All that. I got ahead of myself, and we don't normally do that. So 13.2.5, lot 5, 6, 7, 16, 616 and 718, 21 to 23 Queensley Drive, Claremont, and lot 805 and 806, 352 Sterling Highway, Claremont. Proposed amendment to previous approval for Performing Arts Centre. A mover and a seconder. Mover, Councillor Gurtzy, seconder, Councillor Swan. Councillor Gurtzy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the third development application for the Performing Arts Centre that's come to Council, and I think it's the best application that we've had so far. Christchurch has been forced by rising construction costs to modify their previously approved design, and this revised design reduces the height and scale of the building, increases the setback to the adjacent heritage building, and increases the setback to the river foreshore. So the building will still be extremely functional, and these are only minor modifications, but I see this as a positive outcome, as the building will have reduced height and scale, and particularly it'll settle more easily into the landscape when viewed from the river. So I support the officer recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Gurtzy. Councillor Swan.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that sometimes things like costs can just kind of focus your attention on what you actually need. This is the same Performing Arts Centre. It still serves the same students. It still has the same parking access and land use, so it's not going to have any effect on community. It does just, it just amends the proposal, reduces the design complexity, and it doesn't weaken any of the safeguards, so all the previous conditions continue to apply. So I actually think it delivers a more sensitive, practical building and still benefits the students of Christchurch and the community. So I'm happy with this recommendation.
Anyone like to speak against? Anyone like to speak for? Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, like the others, a slightly different take on it. We had already approved the previous one, and this is less of an impact than the previous one without reducing the benefits to the students. And I think it will be a great asset to the community, and I look forward to going to see performances there. But yeah, I think it's only a better result, so I can't see any reason not to approve it.
Thank you. Anyone like to speak against? Anyone like to speak for? Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Brown.
Yeah, look, I agree with this recommendation. I think from a bulk massing scale perspective, I think it's a better outcome. wearing my architectural hat though, I think, with VE, there does come some loss of the architectural form. I think the previous form had more of a distinct architectural language, which I think is lost, but, from a community benefit, it's a smaller building, it's more respected to the heritage buildings, it still performs the same function. So from that regard, I'm happy to support this recommendation. Thank you.
I'll put it. All those in favour? Carried. No dissent. Point 3.1, status report. Folly Foskers shot borer. Shot hole borer. A mover and a second. A mover, Councillor Franklin. Seconded, Councillor Cameron. Councillor Franklin.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I've heard a lot tonight that we're ahead of the game on lots of things, and I really hope that we can be ahead of the game with trees. Claremont's number one attraction is our tree canopy. It's one of the reasons we're one of the most sought after suburbs. We've just been rated as one of the most valuable properties along with Cottesloe. And not only is our location, but it's the leafy green that people love. If we were to rate, if we can go out to community consultation and ask people where they put trees, I think we'll find, and I'm hoping we might do that at some stage, but I think we'll find it's right at the top of their priorities. DPIRB has been woefully inadequate in their response with this pest. It's been enormously expensive and they've dropped the bundle. They've left trees untreated for years. It has spread. Around the lake is ground zero. If you look at the map, the red area is all around the lake and we have lost huge numbers of trees, and where I live is particularly badly affected. It's not going to be a cheap fix, but it's like a cancer. If you don't attack it early, it costs more later, or the end results are deadly. California has spent $1.8 billion trying to manage it. South Africa, $2 billion. City of Perth has done a very comprehensive report recently outlining their proposed methods of management. I do think we need more information. We need to consult with other councils that have had success, such as the City of Vincent and City of Canning. They have been doing various trials, which have all been reportedly successful. They've saved large numbers of large trees, and originally the state government was just cutting down, mulching and destroying all the trees. Local government has pushed back and is saving them. I would hope that we would be a leader working with those other councils to find out what's been successful. Fortunately, this report doesn't have detail on costings per tree, and we probably need further details. We've just treated 20 trees on our own property. It's cost us $3,500, and our trees are all now protected for the next 3 to 4 years. We've seen treatments in Fern Street. There's an old peppermint tree there that was treated 2 years ago. It's now flourishing, whereas other peppermints in Fern Street are dying. And the 300-year-old paper bark at Lake Claremont was destined to be wood chipped, but it was given this treatment. It now has new buds and is thriving. There's an argument for why do anything if our neighbours aren't doing anything. Why spend money if Nedlands and Cottesloe aren't doing anything? Well, the answer is the treatments we can do can save our trees, and they'll last for 3 to 4 years, and our trees can be protected, and we can demonstrate to other councils best practice and they can follow us. And hopefully if we can have forums with them and work with them, they too will be able to find the treatments that we have found and that Vincent, Canning and the City of Perth have found. I've actually spoken to neighbouring councillors from Nedlands and Cottesloe, and they were very positive about coming to forums and learning more. And I think it's a question of them simply not being aware rather than them not being obstructive. And I think we need to give Nedlands time to get their new council together and their budgets together, but it's not out of the question for other neighbouring councils to look at this like we do with other pests such as foxes and rabbits and other pest control. There's also an argument that why treat street trees if 80% of our trees are privately owned? And my argument is, well, in our street, when we discovered that our street was heavily affected with borer, the WhatsApp group chat went round, the arborist came and assessed most of the street had their trees assessed, and several of us, anyone who had affected trees had them treated. So the only trees in our street that aren't being looked after at the moment are the street trees. So we are spending the money on our private trees, and we would really like, and we're not allowed to touch the street trees. And there's a lovely old paper buck there that's affected. We can't do anything. It would be really good if the council had the funds to respond to treatments when they need to. If we don't give staff the money to respond, the 100,000 will go a small way, but it won't do the entirety of Claremont. To replace a mature tree costs thousands and thousands. To treat a mature infected tree with chemicals and nourishment costs around 100 or less. It's cheaper to treat the trees than it is to remove them. It's cheaper than pruning them. It's cheaper than wood chipping them, and it's cheaper than having limbs drop on people. A stitch in time saves 9, but our staff need the budget to do that. The trees, Councillor Kelly tonight spoke about 23 million being quite affordable for laneways. And if that's, I think his words were not a big number, my argument is if 23 million isn't a big number for laneways, 240,000.
2 to 3.
2 to 3, sorry. 240,000 to save our trees is not a big number. And if we're unsure, perhaps we go to community consultation or gauge the appetite of the public to what it is to save the trees. But doing nothing is not a viable option. And as the report recommends, option 3 is a great start to help save our canopy. And without the funding, it would be awful to drive along and see trees dying in the street. If you go along Alfred Road at the moment, there's a number of dying street trees, and one by one they fall, and you can't replace mature trees with seedlings. It takes 40, 50 years. So stitch in time saves 9. It's like a cancer. Can we please do something? We've sat on watching the state government do nothing for 2 years, and it's excruciating to watch it spread. Can we please do something? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Franklin. Councillor Cameron, did you?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. What's left to say? I think Councillor Franklin did an exceptional job of explaining why we need to vote in favour of this. This is a generational decision. I don't want my kids and my kids' kids looking back saying that as a council we did nothing when we had the opportunity to do something. To do nothing is vandalism. The second option is not much better than the first. I think we've got to do the third and be prepared to spend more if necessary. It's critical. The argument of why do anything if the neighbours aren't going to, I thought about that. You know, what is the point of doing it if we're only going to be infected from next door? But by treating our trees, we in fact inoculate them against the neighbours if they do nothing. We do get a 3-year reprieve if we treat them now. So I think it's essential. I can't say any more without repeating what Councillor Franklin's already said very eloquently and emotionally. So thank you.
Anyone like to speak for?
Question, if I'm...
Yes, Deputy Mayor Kelly.
The recommendation, I probably should have asked that last night. The recommendation to approve option 3, is that for this financial year? Because item 4 refers to option 3 the 240,000 for the 26-27 financial year. But option 2 says approve option 3, detail, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't actually refer to a period. So we're looking at spending 240,000 between now and the 30th of June. Is that what's being proposed?
See ya. Okay. Director of Infrastructure.
Through the chair. Option 3 is the longer term option, and it amounts to $20,000 per month. And there's 2 aspects to it. One is the next 3 months until June, and that is recommendation 3 to amend the current budget by the 60,000. Then recommendation 4 is the further implementation of option 3 of 20,000 a month for the next 12 months in next financial year.
Just clarify though, because option 3 says to consider, we can't, until we bring down a budget, we can't determine there's going to be that.
Correct, that's what it says, consider as part of the budget process an allocation for next financial year. So it's not saying amend the budget. We don't have a budget. That is to consider it in the next 3 months until we adopt the budget. That's correct.
So basically, we're going to be amending the budget by 60,000 for removing from Goldbody renewal to PSB, PS short boat treatment for 60,000 for the next 3 months, and then in the budget process we'll be putting an additional 240,000. So all up, it's going to be 300,000. Yep.
Okay. Thank you for the question. Councillor Swan, speaking for.
Yeah, I actually written for and against because I've really struggled with this from an emotional point of view, but also from a practical point of view. I guess my biggest concern on the negative side is that we don't really know if this is going to work. So it's a little bit of an open checkbook, and I don't know. I mean, I don't know a lot about this space, but I feel like it's a bit of guesswork. So there is a lot of trial and error. However, Claremont is all about tree canopy. I mean, that's a part of our identity. Losing it would fundamentally change the character of our town. I'm hoping that protecting it now will be far cheaper than trying to rebuild it later. I feel like doing nothing with a bare minimum will cost us more in the long run, so that's what I'm going on. And really, in the end, DPIRD have done nothing. So they've stepped back. If we don't step up, no one else will. Really, there's nowhere to go. So I just think we have to throw everything into it. I think this is a moment. I mean, I think both Councillor Cameron and Franklin have kind of said the same thing. This is a moment where we choose, hopefully, what Claremont will look like as a legacy item. So it's a large investment, but I think it's worth giving it a go. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone like to speak against?
Yes, I have a slight problem with this motion, mainly because I feel that cutting out trees completely is premature. People speak about the treatments, but we've had no confirmation from any of the government organisations that they're working, but they could happen next month. And the trees that we are removing, if they can be pruned, even some of them heavily, a lot of them may only need branches removed. We keep our tree canopy and we keep our options open. I feel that if we go in with a swathe of chainsaws and cut out trees completely, I feel that trimming the trees, just as a horticulturalist, I feel that if we trimmed our trees and spent the money on maybe even it might end up being option 2 continued on, rather than wholesale cutting out of trees that may survive with pruning, or they may survive with pruning and some treatment. I feel also strongly about the cancer, because it's not one cancer. It's like the person has cancer in all their different organs because of other councils that don't have the money, they're not doing anything, and it will be too far away. There are lots of people that live with their polyphagus in whatever trees they've got, and they have no idea, and they don't want to spend the money. So it is going to come from them into their street tree as well, and as well as other councils. And it is, this borer flies 100 metres at a time. So if you've got all, I feel that we're being too aggressive with our removals. And I feel that if we, from above, cut out every tree that has a borer, we would have, we'd have, you know, streets that look like Hiroshima, when it's very early stages. And I love the fact that Clermont's ahead of the game and we're the ones that are doing everything in a proactive way. But I feel that with this one, that it could be something that our community might be really upset with as well, because they come home and someone's cut down their 100-year-old tree. So my problem with it is not spending money necessarily. It's not trimming trees. We already have a ruling in option 2 that if a tree is beyond repair or is unsafe, it will be cut down. And I believe that too. So if a tree is beyond repair, or I don't know the exact wording, but if it's dangerous, it will be cut down. And I feel that that's going far enough at the moment. I'm just being Bruce Haynes tonight. Sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. I'll ask a question. CEO, what's the town's position, retreatment, pruning, cutting down at this point? I presume from my reading of the report that it was nuanced between cutting down, pruning and treatment. Can you give us a further update on that, please?
I think you are correct, Mayor, and I might ask the Director of Infrastructure, who's carried to this issue, to talk about that.
Thank you, Mayor, through the chair. I think we must be really, really clear. Removal of the trees is an absolute last resort. Let's be really clear on that. And I do support Councillor Main's proposition that treatment first, treatment second, treatment third, trimming of limbs, lessening the risk of limbs which are infested from falling and being damaged to property and to people. And absolute last resort is to remove the trees. There's no consideration of if there's infestation to remove the tree. There's the first option. It's treatment, 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 and there's lots of new experimentation on the market. There's successes in other places that has been mentioned this evening. There's academics who are doing research on it, and the intention is to buy into all of that, and that's why it's the estimated 20,000 per month. We want to do those treatments as Councillor Franklin has intimated, has been successful, buys us time, and hopefully some more treatments will be on the market during this period. So I want to rest assured and give you the confirmation, removal is the last resort. We want to retain the canopy as far as possible.
Thank you very much for that answer. Anyone like to speak for? Councillor Brown.
Thank you. Thanks for that clarification from the Director of Infrastructure. And I just want to recognise Nick Cook, who sat through 2 hours of this to get to this item as well. Yeah, look, I think for me, this is a no-brainer. This has been an issue for years, something that should have been picked up on a long time ago. I recently presented this to some colleagues of mine over east, some of them landscape architects, and they weren't even aware of this being an issue. So we're at the forefront, and I think it's up to us to kind of stop and act now. So I support this recommendation. Thank you.
Anyone like to speak against? Anyone? Deputy Mayor Kelly.
I'm going to do a Bruce Haynes. There's going to be a few Bruce Hayneses around the table, maybe. Look, there's no question that this has been an utter unmitigated disaster by DPIRD. We should never be in the position that we are currently in. We have trees, and it's in the report tonight, we have trees that were identified over 2 years ago that are still standing, and if they're infecting surrounding trees and subsequently other trees. This has been a poorly handled it's now being left effectively to local governments. But local governments only have jurisdiction over street trees and trees in their parks and reserves. We have no jurisdiction over trees on private properties. This isn't about, for me, this isn't about spending the money. If I thought there was a fix, I'd happily support the money. People have been talking tonight as if there's a fix. There's nowhere in the world that's been identified as a fix. If there was, we'd all be doing it. So we're still in an exploratory stage. I'm really concerned that by treating our trees, we're only treating maybe 20%, and I'm sure Nick would know better than I, but probably 20 or 30% are on property that we actually control or manage in some way. The other 60, 70 or whatever it might be is private property. So if a resident such as myself has a tree at the front which is infected, I don't even know that it's infected, in fact it infects the street tree, we go in and prune the street tree and do whatever and maybe eventually take it down. But my tree, or the resident's tree, is still sitting there as large as life. It may be that, there's, as Councillor Franklin indicated, some people are prepared to pay money to go and have their trees checked to see if the borer is present in those trees. But I would estimate that 90% of people are not going to do that. And then because when it is identified, that's only the beginning of the cost. The cost is potentially thousands, as we've indicated in the agenda tonight. It's, $250,000 a year for a few of our trees. So it's a really serious problem, but there is no simple answer. And I'm just not convinced that by throwing money at it without actually knowing what we're doing is the right thing to do, because we're doing no more than what Deep Bird was doing 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whenever it was first identified. And it hasn't solved the problem. There's no data in this report about how we've arrested it or what treatment has worked. We've heard some anecdotal comments about how there's new shoots on trees, but there's no hard data. There's no scientific study that we've been presented with to show us that this is the answer. So we're really doing it off our own bat, and I'm not convinced that that's the right way of doing it. I'm happy to spend the $20,000 a month or whatever it is for the rest of the year. And I'm happy to support the recommendation because it says let's bring it to the budget process for the following year. But I want some evidence. We're spending $250,000 or proposing to spend $250,000 a year, and we don't actually really know what we're doing or whether we're solving it. We think we're mitigating something, but it's only a short-term solution because every tree on private property is going completely untested, and we don't know the extent of the proliferation of the borer on those trees. We will have some idea on our own trees, presumably, but that's not the bulk of the trees. So I'm in two minds, to be honest. I'm sure we need to do something. I'm not quite sure what, but the fact that it has been left to us. We're getting no assistance from government. We're a small council. I would have thought that there would be a metropolitan-wide approach in terms of how council should be managing this issue. And instead we're getting a few dollars in tree baits, or I think we've got $100,000 to replace the trees that we've already removed. So this is all coming directly out of ratepayers' funds, which I find unpalatable, to be honest, because it's something that should never have got to the extent that it has. But as I say, I'm happy to support it tonight, but I'd really like to have a bit more substance if it comes to committing another $250,000 in the year 26-27 financial year. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone like to speak for? Yep. Councillor Fernandez.
The way I read the report is that it's basically a band-aid solution. It's to buy us time. It's basically to protect the trees we have. It'll buy us 2, 3 years, 4 years if we're lucky, and basically hopefully by then we'll have a better solution to the problem. So that's why I support it, because it's it's not a great solution. It's not an answer, but it's sort of there's allow us to preserve at least our trees. There's limits on what we can do as a council. We can't do anything about private trees. We can't do anything to direct what neighbouring councils do, but at least we can do what we can to preserve the trees we can. So that's why I'm in favour of it.
Councillor Franklin, would you like to wrap up?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know part of the cost is nourishing the trees, which is an important part. There's special nutrients they need, and if they're properly nourished and properly watered, they have a much better fight against the borers. It's effectively a dieback. I'm very keen to see us do what we can while the science emerges, because it is coming. The City of Perth has just released a recent report, which if I could request that the staff circulate to councillors, or I can. It's a comprehensive report on what they're doing, and we're not alone. Every other council's facing this. In fact, Southwest councils are so concerned. They are asking me through contacts I have in the Southwest, what can they do in readiness, because they are really upset and worried about their fruit trees and the native forests. So hopefully with the science that there's research being conducted, there's a number of trials. Hopefully in the time we've got, we can find some solutions. Thank you.
Okay, I'll put it. All those in favour? Carried. No dissent. 13.3.2 Climate Ready Street and Tree Trial Species. A mover and a seconder. Moved. No one wants to move that? Moved. Councillor Brown, seconded. Councillor Main. Councillor Brown.
I think we just had enough conversations about trees. Look, we know how important they are, and they need to be resilient and adaptable for, where climate change is going. So, I'll support this recommendation.
Councillor Main.
I'm speaking against the motion, as Bruce would. The reason being, the 6 trees put forward by Walga they don't necessarily suit Claremont's situation. So we're replacing the plane trees that have died a lot of them through lack of water and the ones along Greylands Road are just finding it really hard to survive fighting against the elements. And I think 7 have died from polyphagus, which is not a lot, so they're going to be the last man standing. But I feel that the 6 trees that Walga chose as a trial really suit greenfield sites and councils where they have underground power, no underground power, because I won't go into every tree, but 2 of them are really small. So you're going to put a crepe myrtle that won't ever reach that roof next to the plane trees, and they don't grow in Perth. They don't like sand. They are really slow growing, for example, and another tree is similar in that respect. 2 are from Kalgoorlie, and they like clay. The salmon gum is big. It's from the wheat belt, and if it's under stress and isn't in a spot where it's going to get lots of water, like along Greylands Road, they drop limbs. And I just feel that these 6 trees are not the answer for our lack of leopard trees. And I would rather see us wait a year or think again about a replacement. Firstly, that maybe looks a little bit like a plane, because in 3 of the roads there's only 2 missing. So you're going to have historic buildings with the historic trees and one little tree that's different in the middle, because we are, for the next 5 years, committed to these 6 trees. I don't like to knock the idea of those 6 in general, because most other councils have underground power, and so they have dramas with tall trees, but we are able to have ginormous trees with huge canopies because we're one of the few towns that has all our power underground. And that's why we've got a really good canopy in terms of our index. So I just feel these are the wrong trees. I'd rather wait a year and not put anything in place of the planes than use these 6 trees. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor May. Anyone like to speak for? Anyone like to speak against? No? No? Okay.
I'll speak against.
Okay.
I'm of a similar mind to Councillor Mayne. I would much prefer to wait than see some of these trees planted, in any of them actually, to be honest, in amongst an avenue of plane trees. And even the one at the the roundabout in Goodgery Street, which is a standalone tree, it died from lack of water. I just think we need to keep some consistency in and around the town centre, and where we've got avenues of trees, keep it consistent. I mean, sticking one of these in Goldsworthy Road, for example, would just be hideous. And so I don't support it. I think I'm quite happy to wait if it means that, I think we got 10 or 11 for this planting season. If we need another 10 or 11 to catch up, then add, increase the number that we're requesting. So, but I don't support the current recommendation.
Anyone like to speak for? Anyone like to speak against? I'll speak against. I think we've got a street tree master plan. I just looked it up this afternoon. It's a very comprehensive document that we went through. Each street, biodiverse, which my street is over on Brown Street. So that's my reason for speaking against. Councillor Franklin, are you speaking for or against?
I'm of a like mind to other councillors that I don't think this selection is suitable, and I can think of other trees that would be more suitable, and I'd rather wait and have more complementary trees rather than unsuitable ones.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Brown, would you like to wrap up?
I feel like I have you threw me off. I'm going to back my first one in anyway. Look, yeah, appreciate it. I think those other comments, I think that they make a lot of sense. Look, at the end of the day, I think climate change is happening fast, and we do need to have an eye to that. Recognise that this is a trial, and look, if the trial doesn't work, then I think there's other options to explore, in the next year. So I'll stick with my endorsement.
Okay, I'll put it. All those in favour? 1, 2. Councillor Brown and Councillor Gertie in favour. All those against? Councillor Suan, Deputy Mayor Kelly, Councillor Fernandez, Councillor Cameron, Mayor Telford, and Councillor Franklin against. Thank you. Item 14. Councillor Brown, if you go around the table.
Conscious of time, I'm just going to put out there that for those unaware, the youth photography competition is open. The subject is close to home, and it's open to 12 to 18-year-olds within the kind of western suburbs communities, and closes on the 10th of April. So if you know anyone within that age group, please encourage them to enter the competition. I'm one of the judges this year. And I think it was 2 years ago we did a similar one, which was pretty successful. So, yeah, please, I encourage you to share. It's on the social medias as well, so share that if you haven't at the moment. Thank you.
Councillor Swan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I attended our concept meeting. I also was a judge alongside Councillor Goetze for the Lions Youth Debating Public Speaking Award, which I think I've done for 3 or 4 years now, and it's always wonderful to see that skill, which is very important for them to get to speak publicly, but also they have to respond to impromptu questions, which can be quite daunting. So that's always great to be part of. Attended a networking event with the town of Mosman Park, with the town of Cottesloe and Peppermint Grove, and was there another one? I think it was 4. And I attended for October, which was a pre-loved designer fashion sale down at our Bayview Community Centre, which was in support of ovarian cancer, which was very well run. And today I represented the town at Kate Cheney's office, where we assessed EOIs for the volunteer grants by the Department of Social Services. There were, I think, about 66 applications, and all were very worthy, so it was quite a difficult task, but that will now be sent to the National Minister to review, but all very worthy causes, and it's great to see all that community work recognised. Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Goetze.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I also attended the concept forum, the networking function at Mosman Park. Nice to see a group of councillors getting together in a very friendly environment. Hopefully we can do some more of that sort of thing. And as Councillor Swan said, I also attended the Lions Club Youth of the Year Award judging, and that's always absolutely amazing because you meet these absolutely incredible young people, and it gives me great faith in the future of this country when you've got such wonderful young people coming up. So thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor May.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Concept forums also. With Councillor Zwan and yourself, I was at a meeting discussing the council logo, a marketing meeting. I also attended the Walga Roadwise meeting, and we discussed 40 kilometres an hour, and also road treatments, and there is funding for road treatments, and if you use it through Streetwise, you can also lower the speed limit, which might be interesting for our non-local roads. And the Walga representative gave us our stats on hospitalisations and traffic crashes. And there weren't many. I think there was only 14, but all of them involve pedestrians, bikes or e-bikes. And as he said, your drivers are safe in Claremont streets, but not your pedestrians. So I thought that was a very good comment. Meet and greet as well, and my family dined in the lane during their promotion, and it was packed, and it was midweek, and I thought it was a great promotion to get some food and beverage going in the town centre. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Kelly.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Wouldn't miss a concept forum if I had to walk over broken glass. So I attended at least one of those, I think probably 2. I think we've had 2 in the last month. Yeah. The Local Government Insurance Board meeting, and I attended last week the Australian Building Code Board, which I'm the national representative on. I missed, unfortunately, as a result, the Mosman Park Nibbles and Natter, but I hear it went very well. I even heard from Mosman Park that it went very well, which is great, and maybe we should do more of it in the spirit of talking to our neighbours and boundaries and the like. And I also attended the Claremont Football Club. I think it was wasn't the seniors, it was the Colts, yeah, along with the CEO and the mayor. Thank you.
Councillor Fernandez.
Hi, I attended the 2 concept forums, the networking event in Mosman Park, and I also completed the last of my new councillor training. So yeah, all done.
That's, you're getting away from a $500 fine. That's brilliant. And you want to get paid. Councillor Cameron.
Congratulations. Yeah, look, I used to go first and I hated that. Now I hate going last because it makes me look like I've done nothing. But there were several concept forums during the month. I tried to attend one via Zoom, which was a failure. Attended the other one. Also attended an audit risk and improvement meeting, but we didn't have a quorum, so that's been rejigged for another date. And that's it from me.
Councillor Franklin, hello.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I did one forum and then I've been really sick for 2 weeks, so missed everything else. And after 2 weeks, I'm happy to report I'm suddenly better. So it's about time. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Franklin. I'm sure I've been spending a fair bit of time with the CEO, meeting leaders in our community, which has been actually fantastic. We met with, for example, Dr. Alec O'Connor from Scotch, checking in with what their future needs are, as an example. We went over to see what our $7,500 donation amounted to over with the Claremont Colts and the women's young women's team. It was a great night, actually. It was an excellent night in terms of showing how a sporting club services the youth of our community. Then CEO and I went across to Form and checked in. They had an evening where they had a speaker talking about light show installations, about that, how that was working in different concepts, and one of the concepts was in more of a Lake Claremont style environment. Probably of more interest to the elected members was that I also attended on the one day the MLC International Women's Breakfast, which was extremely well done. They had a panel of 4 ex-students from a cross-section of industries and ages, but we congratulate MLC. It was a fantastic event. Followed that up with the St Aidan's prayer breakfast. It was nice to go down and see the St Aidan's Church, which we've actually donated in terms of the upkeep of that infrastructure in the past, this council has, and I met the minister there. Then I went across to see what value we got for our donation to the Men's Shed in terms of providing entertainment for the afternoon, about 4:30. And then to Wasso for the Tchaikovsky's violin concerto. And I met the team from Wasso, who, as I'd indicated, were very supportive about how we can maybe do things differently next year if we pursue that path. Also, importantly for us, I attended the Welga Mayor's meeting, which Deputy Mayor Kelly would know all about the importance of mayors getting together. There are probably about 50 mayors in attendance from all over the state. Slightly numbers diminished because of Cyclone Narelle coming down the coast. The minister spoke at that, Minister for Local Government, Hannah Beasley spoke. I thought she spoke extremely well, actually. Detailed, her thoughts and her aspirations for the sector and her aspirations for the sector. And I spoke to her on the sidelines, what we are, our lived experience here at Claremont. I was so proud to be able to tell her the way that we behave as elected members in our relationship with the administration. So I relayed that to her about what we're doing here at Claremont. She appreciated that. And at some point, I'd like to invite her down for morning tea when we've got, an activation that we can have her open or be present at. And then today, CEO and I and David Vinicombe attended a meeting with Emma Cole, WAPC chairperson, and congratulations to the administration for putting that presentation together, and David presented our case extremely well in terms of what we've achieved in Claremont and the limitations also of the Swanbourne site in terms of development. So that's it. So, yes,
I just forgot one thing that I'd like to mention that I did.
of course.
I also attended, I think, and Councillor Fernandez, we attended the Claremont Lawn Tennis Club's 125-year ball celebration. So it's a pretty amazing milestone. I think it's one of the, I think they said there's only about 8 other clubs that are that old. So it was formed in 1901. It really is, I mean, it really has a real cross-section of ages that attend that club. So they do juniors but right through. They've got a really great youth, I say youth, I'm saying under 35 program, and then they've got members there that are in their 90s. So congratulations to the Claremont Lawn Tennis Club, and their ball was wonderful. They did that out on the grass courts at a marquee. It was really lovely. So thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. 16, new business of an urgent nature approved by the person presiding or by decision of the meeting, nil. Item 17, confidential items for which the meeting may be closed, nil. 18, future meetings of council at this stage, ordinary council meeting Tuesday the 28th of April at 7 p.m. and 19, declaration of closure of meeting, we declare the meeting closed at 9:30. Exactly. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, administration.